Greetings, viewers. This is TSR Emperor Dion of the 409th, and today I bring you a clan battle. This is the first battle fought between the 409th and Continuity in these couple of clan games we had yesterday. And so, this battle is a 4v4. We've got a lot of players here, very representative of our clans, but at the same time, me and Decas also had a conversation after these games where we kind of more or less talked about, yeah, these games weren't as good as they could have been. Because, like, for starters, neither side has, like, their best players forward. Like, the 409 team here, every member of this team for the 409, this is their first clan match. Okay, Sharp and EE have never really fought in a clan match before. Sharp in particular is, like, not as experienced of a player as, like, some of us here. And MDK even, he's a very good player, but he's never fought in a clan match before, so the pressure's kind of on for him too. And then there's myself, the stalwart veteran of the 409th, the leader, and like this is just Tuesday for me. But for these guys, this is their first time. And normally, if I would have wanted like a more serious team here, I would have brought players like Kharkiv or Sexy Man or hell, even Grant Arme would have been a better choice, or RM. Like those guys have experiences with clan battles, so like. This wasn't the best team that 409th could put forward, but this is still a very, very solid team that we put forward nonetheless. The cost, on the other hand, his players are like, again, like similar level of experience, similar level of expertise. He does have Kafalho next to him, who is playing as Austria. He's a pretty solid, experienced player, but he isn't probably who we would have preferred, but still, it's a very solid team for Continuity nonetheless. But this battle is going to be a blowout, crushing 409th victory, let's just say. Okay, but this battle, out of the two battles that we had, is still, I think, the more interesting of the two. Because, for starters, it played out a lot longer. It was more contested. And the moves that were made during this, like, I'm going to have to actually divide this battle up into two parts to show you exactly, because there's two things happening at one time that I'm not going to be able to show you all in one clip. So I had to record this in two clips, and I'm going to go show you one side, and then I'm going to load up the other clip and then show you the other side, because they happen at the same time. So I'm going to have to do this type of thing with this battle, because a lot happened here. There's a lot to unpack in this battle. This is going to be a very, very good battle, as a matter of fact. But this isn't like the best display of a clan match between 409th and Continuity. I will concede that, because like typically, because our clans overall from pound to pound are much more close to each other as far as like skill wise, like they've got some very solid players that did not participate too. Like for sure, if Continuity Oreo Man would have been here, that would have been a pretty significant problem for our team to deal with here. We would have need like equally skilled members to face off against him. And so to run through here the lineup that we have, so EE is on the far flank playing as Prussia. Next to him playing as France is 409th Sharp. And next to Sharp we have 409th MDK. He's playing as the Ottomans beside me. And then on the far flank, of course, is me. So here's EE's army. You see he's got 6 Lancers there with Prussia. That's a very, very good, solid offensive army that he has there. And his MDK with Ottomans there. And myself here on the far flank with France. So because this is the 4v4 and the map is very widely spread, we're going to be utilizing every inch of the map here to try and push all along the front and an all-out offensive. We kind of agreed to the strategy going into this game. So that's what you're going to see the 409 team largely do here. And Continuity, so on their team, they've got Continuity Mumily facing off against EE with Ottomans. But next to him, you got Continuity Imperados Aldeas. I think that's how you say his name. He's playing as GB. Next to him, you've got Continuity Pooh, also known as Continuity Kafalho. He's an old player. He's been around for about as long as I have. He's pretty solid. He's there for with Austria. And on the far flank, you have Continuity's leader, Decas, playing as Portugal, facing off against myself. So I like how the lined up here. You got the two leaders in front of each other that are going to face off. the cost, him with that Portuguese army, he's gonna more or less seek to form a defensive screen right along that tree line there, and he's gonna move over to support Cafalho on the fight against MDK. So here we go. They're both the 4/9 and continuity teams are coming at each other immediately in the middle of the map. MDK got off a very nice volley to the face against those lancers coming in against him, but that's going to result in a melee, a hard melee between our two sides there, and then all across the center of the map. EE's going in on his opponent on the far flank on that hill over there. This is going to have a very strong and contested fight here in the forest and on that hill right from the start on EE's side. Another thing I would like to bring up about this battle is that the way that this ends up going has a lot to do with player style. So like every player's style here is influencing what happens on this battlefield. You see, I can tell you about each player's style here briefly here. So MDK in particular is a very, very hyper aggressive player who's very, very good, and he's really good at pushing. You're going to see that have an impact as I show you the other side in a little bit here, but EE's style is also very hyper aggressive in the sense that he usually goes all in from the very start, and you're going to see him do that when I show you the more detailed clip of what his side looks like and what it results into. 4/9 Sharp style, he's very conservative. He's very kind of like holds back a little bit. He doesn't really go all the way in, and he also likes to focus on supporting his allies more, so he kind of is focused on survival and hanging back and lending his support where he can, and he's not going to get his hands too dirty in the fighting, but he will do some fighting to kind of hold up the line and to hold up his part of the battle. Now, as you'll see over here though, the cost has settled into this force over here. My goal is to come and fish him out, kind of find the end of his formation here. You see, I found it right here. I found the end of his formation, the last line of infantry on his flank. He's going to go into square formation because my cavalry got way too close to him before his units even begin to fire. I'm going to use the opportunity that he went into square to get off of that square and try to go for his light infantry there in the forest. I'm going to push my vultures up right into his face and get shots off on him at point blank range. That's going to do some damage to him. That's going to wake the cost up a good bit because he got a little bit too comfortable in that position, and he's over there supporting against MDK. I've got to be like, hey, you wake up, get off of my teammate, you know. I got to get his attention, and you see I'm doing a very good job of that. He's moving his units over from MDK, and he's moving his units to face over towards me now. But I've already committed to the attack, so this is going to be a slugfest pretty much here. Here we go, pulling back my cavalry from that initial raid. Now I'm moving in with some of my initial first waves of line infantry to press him down and get him pressed, and make sure he doesn't move anywhere. Keep him pressed into that forest. What that's going to allow for is an opportunity for MDK to later come in here and do something with the cost, but I'm not going to be able to win this fight unless the cost comes, unless MDK comes in here and supports me, because the cost is fighting from the forest and I'm out on the open ground. I am able to tie him up effectively here, but like I can only just hold him here. This is a very good thing that I'm willing to do here, to trade some men with him, to sacrifice some men in an effort just to keep the cost pressed there in that forest so that he's not as much of a nuisance towards MDK. You see, I launched the cavalry at one of the cost's light infantry that he left over there to face MDK. I did that to kind of prop MDK. Hey, let's go. I need you over here. See, I'm rallying my men there to keep the morale up. And MDK is going to get the signal from me doing that. You see, MDK is beginning to pour in fire against Cafalho, and he's going to start to look into getting into this fight. So I'm continuing to press the advantage here. I've got my old guards over here. I'm going to fire almost point blank range into him in the forest. Bam! That is a devastating fire right there. Even though he's in the forest, those are old guards, so he's still going to take quite a beating from those old guards despite being in the forest. And this battle is getting properly underway here. The cost, he has been quite rattled by this assault that I'm putting in on him. Like, he has not done a whole heck of a lot of damage because I really have not given him the opportunity to just sit and shoot and to bring his firepower completely to bear on me yet. So it's still more or less even, the fighting between me and him. But here we go. MDK is now committing to an attack into DeCosta's rear here. That's gonna create a very bad situation for DeCosta here and for the continuity team here, because now that gap has opened up between Cafalho and DeCosta. MDK is going to get as many units as he can into that gap, and he's going to kind of come in here and separate DeCosta off from the main army, and that's going to allow me to then further press my attacks in order to wipe out DeCosta fully. And unless DeCosta falls back from this or counterattacks effectively against me, he's gonna get wiped out here if he doesn't do something fast here. So this is how the battle is more or less developing. You see DeCosta is rallying his men there because he recognizes now that he's in a precarious situation. He can still inflict a lot of casualties on me here if he just sits and shoots, but I'm not allowing him the chance to get comfortable. I'm constantly pressing him with cavalry, and I'm launching waves of light infantry to fire volleys at him. Even though he's in the forest, he's still taking some losses, and he is not able to concentrate his firepower on any one area because I've engaged him all along his line here. Cafalho has responded with a Lancer to try and mop up some of MDK's swords there, but I'm going to respond with one of my cavalries to kind of get that Lancer off of MDK. So you see me supporting MDK there quite effectively. There we go. Now that's going to allow MDK to further press into DeCosta's rear here with his swords and with his cavalry here. Now that I've secured his flank and kind of double back in on Cafalho's Lancer there. The fight is very, I'm moving in for another strike with my cavalry, or preparing for one. I've also moved in a bit more into the forest to kind of scoop DeCosta away from Cafalho. Cafalho's turning his lines over to bring some supporting fire over to help DeCosta, but DeCosta is still kind of in a bad, tight spot here. He's taking a lot of casualties in that forest from the ensuing melee here of my units and MDK's units here, and I'm also right up in his face, basically just shooting at him from outside the forest into the forest. Yeah, their position is very precarious here. We've effectively pushed a very effective sweeping attack into DeCosta here. We're kind of pitching him off of his anchor point here and pivoting him off of this strong position ever so slightly, and it's progressed now to the point where Cafalho is having a difficult time trying to stop this. Even though he's laying in supporting fire here, it's not going to be effective at this stage because we've already secured this flank too heavily here. You see I'm committing to a full-flown line engagement here. You see I'm pressing forward with a good bit of my lines to secure the forest now. That's going to be the death blow to knock DeCosta fully out of the forest and to fully press the attack and make it such that now we've got a very strong front, and we've effectively pushed continuity off of this strong defensive location and into the spawn. So DeCosta and Cafalho are going to be forced back into their spawn and into the next segment of forest over there that they have access to. This is heavily in 409's favor here on this side. 409 has almost completely secured the forest such that they can no longer use it to their advantage to put up an effective defense against us. And that is essentially all she wrote on this side of the battle. Myself and MDK did a very effective attack in knocking continuity back off of this defensive position and into their spawn. Now that they're in their spawn, it's going to kind of stagnate there as we gradually push forward. We are going to push more, but now it's time to rewind a bit, and we're going to go over to EE's side of the battle to show you what happened over there. Right, so here we go on the second clip. Now we're going to be focusing in on EE and Sharp side this time around. You see, the match is progressing exactly the same way that it did when I initially showed this part in the other clip. So this is going to progress right up to the point where you probably saw in that other one, except here we go, we're going to focus in on this. Now, EE is going to do an interesting thing here. He's going to use his light infantry to absorb the shock of these cavalry coming at him through the forest. Now, watch this. He's going to then use one of his lights to start shooting at the cavalry as it's locked into him on melee. You see, the way you do stuff like that is you use the light infantry, you keep clicking on the cavalry while it's sitting there engaged, and like sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, but when you in the forest like this, you can do things like this, and maybe it'll probably more likely work in the forest, where if you just keep clicking, your light infantry will start shooting the cavalry at point blank range and essentially just wipe it out, and while it's in melee with your light like that. And that is a very like textbook way that he got rid of at least one of those calves like that. The other one he's just probably going to hit square, and like those squares will shoot it off. But he essentially absorbed 2 or 3 cavalries right there. We absorbed 2 cavalries with minimum damage. Minimum damage. That was very, very good. You can definitely use something like that for your own purposes if you find yourself in that situation, which you likely will if you're playing against clan players. So here we go. Now you see Sharp over there in the forest engaged with Emperor Aldoros, and the battle is continuing along as it was in the other clip. MDK is engaged with Kufahal, Sharp is engaged with Emperor Aldoros, and EE is engaged with what was the guy's name again? I forget his name, but you see so EE and Mumik, I think this is his name, whatever. EE and this guy is over here in the forest. Like, this is gonna turn into a complete bloodbath here. You see all this smoke, you see the point blank range shots right here in the forest. Now the Turk guy is gonna go right in with his swords here. That is a very perfectly timed, well executed attack there. EE is gonna have a ton of difficulty shaking something like that off, particularly since I think he doesn't have his cavalry anywhere close to there right now. He is moving his cavalry over there right now, but it's a little too late. You needed him like 10 seconds ago to be over there, so you know, EE is in some trouble there. Now I will say, the Turk guy did not put rank on his swords, so like that does give EE somewhat of a fighting chance of fighting those swords off, but that's still not a good situation to be in, getting caught by swords right there in the forest. So this is just going to descend into an all-out melee here. Sharp is actually shooting EE in the back right now too, so that's not good for their side right now. Like, EE's kind of catching it both ways right now for the most part, and it looks like he's gonna get pretty well battered and bruised, and he's gonna get a bloody nose if he sticks there in the forest. Personally, if it were me, you know, EE is known for kind of slugging it out with people and going all in. If it was me, I would have just took the opportunity to pull back out of that forest. I would have gave him the forest and pulled back somewhere into my spawn. It's better for you to preserve your army, in my opinion, than for you to just duke it out over positions like this. Because like what's going to come out of this fight ultimately, you'll see what this ultimately comes down to. But for right now, I can definitely tell you the Turk guy is winning. Sharp is going to have to do something here to assist EE and save him out of this situation, because if he doesn't, if EE were left here completely on his own right here, the Turk guy's got him. He's got him in melee with swords. He's got him heavily tied up. He's even rallying his own units while they're in melee too. And Ottoman lines, they're not like super good in melee, but they are definitely no pushover. Like, they're one of the better lines when it comes to melee, so there's even that going on. Prussia is not really a melee focused nation at all. Prussia is a nation that wants to shoot much more than go in melee, so you know, it's just not a favorable situation for EE at all to be in. And you see his units are dwindling down too. Like he's losing a lot of his units in this melee so far. And Sharp, Sharp is overlooking the whole mess. It's really a big mess. But Sharp is overlooking the whole thing kind of on that vantage point there, and like he's kind of trying to shoot down into that forest. It's not really going to do a whole lot of damage. It's not going to do the damage he needs to do. And also the Turk guy does have some units facing Sharp too in addition, and EE is basically almost completely pushed out of the forest. He's barely holding on to that small little edge of the forest right there. The Turk guy has basically got full control over that forest. If it were me, I would push some units into the forest, turn towards Sharp, and start firing on him from inside the forest. Now you see Sharp is committing a cavalry into the fight now, and that's going to be a big help towards EE. He's going to manage to catch the Turk guy's forces in the back with chasseurs or cheval, which that's heavily needed by EE right now. EE's army is nearly completely wiped out at this point. It happened just that quickly, guys. Artemis is very dangerous in a close-up fight like this. In case you don't know, if you ever allow Artemis to get this close to you, and especially getting into melee with you, Artemis is one of those brawler nations that's built for this type of style of gameplay. You don't want to be up close to Artemis. You want to keep Artemis at as much range as possible, because Artemis shooting stats, they aren't the best, but they're much more favored towards a brawler up close in your face melee type of combat. So anyways, it is good that the Turk player lost all of his cavalry at this stage. I think he lost all that pretty early, but he was just able to just get into the forest and just punch EE right in the face. And EE has lost most of his army, pretty much. He lost all of his light infantry, which is very, very bad for Prussia. But Sharp did come in here and do a lot of damage with those French cavalries there. Like he actually peeled off quite a few units from EE, and the Turk guy took so much damage from those calves that Sharp launched against him. Sharp is even coming out of the forest and going against some of his units there in the rear there. Yeah, even trying to get after his general there. Yeah, Sharp did an excellent job with that French cavalry. Excellent job. This has allowed EE to reform what's left of his army, and now EE is beginning to fire upon the enemy now. Sharp has also turned more of his units over to that ledge, and he's shooting down on the Ottoman player from that vantage point. So now they've managed to turn this around from EE about to get annihilated to EE suddenly now being able to use his foot guards there, his last remaining units, to fire out of the forest. None of the Turk players been pushed out of the forest. Now, Emperor Alderos has sent over a couple of his British lines to begin supporting the Turk player now, because he sees he needs assistance. Really, Alderos should have been over there helping sooner. It's a little too late for him to be doing this now, but you see how this reversal came. EE was about to lose. Sharp helped him. The Turk player got screwed royally by Sharp's cavalry, and that turned the fight around. Now Alderos is over to help the Turk player, and he is this fight is now come back into a stalemate between EE and Sharp versus the Turk guy and Alderos. And this is just kind of how this fight over here is going to fizzle out into. It's going to fizzle out into a stalemate. At this stage on the other side of the map, myself and MDK have already underway with launching our attack against Dukas and Kafalho, and like you can see on the map, that's already happening over there. But this fight, there's a ton of bodies. There's a ton of dead bodies in that forest. That was one hell of a slugfest in that forest, and they're still here. they're still here trying to regain their position in the forest. Like, but I don't think that's gonna work out for them now because EE's last remaining units are foot guards, and like keep in mind, Turkey does not have foot guards at all. He's only got regular line infantry up against foot guards fighting for the forest, so he's gonna be forced to pull back here. You see, that's what he's doing right now. Emperor Alderos is going to stick around with his British lines and continue to try to fight it out, but it's probably not a good idea. He's going to take a ton of shots, a ton of damage, and also Sharp has deployed the Old Guard on that ledge over there, coming off of that ledge, so it would be advisable for both of the continuity players to withdraw from this. It's over, it's done, the fight's over. Nothing else can be done on this flank, really, and you'll see like not much else is going to happen on this flank, so we're going to move over now and continue the rest of the battle. Now we're at the part where we left off in the first clip. We're now at the part where continuity has been pushed out of their defensive forest on their side, and they've been pushed firmly back into their spawn, so they take up positions in this last patch of forest that's in their spawn pretty much, and they're going to use that forest to fight us off and fight for that position. And it's a very strong position, but I think we're going to have the forces necessary to completely slowly, methodically stomp them out. So here we go. I'm positioning my units here to begin slowly rolling back this flank. So I'm going to roll back the flank here with my lines and old guards and my remaining cavalries, and Sharp has also sent over some of his cavalry too to help out with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to completely roll up this flank such that, and once we get that flank rolled up enough, we're going to then try to attack the forest. That's what we usually do here. And looking back on this flank, you see like basically the Turk player and EE, both of their armies are almost completely annihilated. So like both of those guys are only running around with a couple units. It's mainly just Emperor Alderos and Sharp who are on this site with most of the units now, but neither of them are really doing much. Emperor Alderos is actually over on the other side of the map, attempting to assist Decas and Cafalho. Like he is holding up some resistance over here too, but the fight over here is, for all intents and purposes, done, and not much else is going to happen until literally something forces them to have to fight again on that side again. But most of the fighting is now going to be on my side and MDK's side, and it's just going to be us two versus Decas and Cafalho here. So you see, like I said, they've got that strong position in the forest. Oh, somebody lost their general too, by the way. I think the Ottoman player, yeah, the Ottoman player on continuity side lost their general. So, I mean, that's kind of pointless. He's lost all of his army anyway. But getting a general out does help for the morale of the rest of the army. So that is a help. That is a help. It indicates where the battle's going. So we got contact there from the forest. MDK is engaging into the forest with his two remaining lights. I've got my lights lined up with them just in case the flank tries to move up on them or anything like this, just to give them that line of support. Like I said, they've got the strong forest position right here that they're going to fight from, but what we're going to just do is roll up the flank enough to where we can come at that forest from multiple angles, and then we're going to storm the forest. And then once we've stormed the forest, at some point while we are storming that forest, we're also going to storm the flank and try and wipe it out in one go. You'll see all that happen methodically, slowly. We can't rush this. We can't be too reckless, because even though the fight is heavily on our favor now, they could still turn this around. You see Sharp is all the way over there with his two cavalries flanking around, forcing them to roll the flank back further and further. I'm moving up and lining up on Cafalho's Austrian lines there. Yeah, we've got a very strong effective fighting force on this side. But like I said, if you're too reckless, then this fight could actually turn around and continuity could pull something off. So we have to be careful about how we go about this still. it's not a completely down and out fight yet. We have to be methodical about this in order to close it out as a victory. So here we go. DeCosta's moving out of the forest to try and take some shots off at either my units or MDK's units there. I think it's his Ottoman lights there that are taking the shots. And I have to be mindful of this too. Like I specifically positioned my light infantry closer to the forest because I don't mind him taking shots at my light infantry, because my light infantry are already almost out of ammunition anyway, so they're kind of just meat shields at this point. I don't mind him shooting at those. It's mostly my lines and especially my old guard that I'm more worried about now, and also my few remaining cavalries. I've got not the most healthy cavalry, but I've got a good decent amount of cavalry, and it will be a significant threat to them if used wisely, so they are quite concerned about that. See MDK shooting off into the forest there, and now he's making his move. He's making his move right now. I presume those light infantry he's sending in are almost out of ammunition, so he doesn't mind risking them as much, but he's moving in from multiple angles with a sword, or I think that's a Nizam there he got running into that forest. He managed to clip through his DeCosta's first unit there, and he clipped through to that second unit. He's going to hit that second unit to the rear while he's further pushing into the forest to shoot him in the point blank range. I'm also moving in with one of my depleted light infantry there to try and render some sort of assistance, or try to draw Kofaho into doing something here. They're rallying their men. The continuities are rallying their men. Yeah, guys, this is going to be a... Oh, it's not going to be quite like it was in the forest between EE and the Turk guy, but like this is still going to be another one of those slugfests in a forest. You see, I've moved up with my Swiss foot. I'm kind of honestly shooting MDK in the back here, but I'm also being able to get like some shots off on DeCosta's units here too, so it's very, very helpful. I ran up my light infantry to shoot at Kofaho's line there, but unfortunately I came too close, and he managed to return fire, which is not at all a good thing. But like I said, my light infantry are almost completely out of ammunition anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. So I just have to be more careful with my light infantry micro there. Rushing in another two more of my depleted light infantries into the forest to try and tie up more of DeCosta's units there. DeCosta's damn near almost completely lost his army now. He's got very few units, so he's got like a couple of fresh lines still, which are a significant threat, but like that's not going to be too much of an issue. I charged him there with the depleted calf, and that hit him dead on, but because the calf was already so weak, it didn't really do that much damage to him. Rallying my men, gonna try to rush something into the inner part there so I can get another angle there to attack the forest from. We're attacking this forest. We're already halfway through this forest. We've managed to push halfway through this forest so far. I'm running my cavalry there to try and tie up some units back there. Yeah, we've captured half of the forest, so like a good bit of the work for getting into that forest is now complete. Now with the forest heavily contested like this, this is my cue to start thinking about launching a general assault on the flank there. Now that the forest is heavily contested, so that while that's going on, I could go ahead and take out Kofaho's strong flank here with his lines, and MDK and Sharp are also moving forward on a frontal assault somewhat. So now it's the time for planning out a general assault on the flank, which you'll see that start to happen shortly here. DeCosta's deploying the last of his reserve units here. Here we go. Now beginning a general assault on the flank. Contact. So I'm going to lock down that inner part of his line right there, and then here comes my cavalry. Now my cavalry is going to do an interesting thing here. Now watch this. Cavalry's going to come in. Kofaho sees it and tries to pull back, but it's too late. My cavalry is rushing in there. It's going to swipe straight through that depleted line right there. Bam! Right there, it immediately took out that depleted line. Now I'm going to sweep across. He tried to go into square with one of his lines there, but the cavalry's just going to pull through it. He's going to sweep onto those other depleted lines right there from the rear. Bam! Contact right there. He's trying to rush in to save it. Bam! Took out 2 lines just like that with that 1 cav. I swept in there, took out 1, 2, 3. Now I'm pulling that cavalry back, nice and clean. That is a very well executed general attack there. My cavalry's going to pull back, and now he's going to try to get a counterattack with his lancer there, but unfortunately I'm going to shoot him right in the face with my lines there. He managed to catch him pretty easily. That lancer did not do a whole lot of damage, so he basically lost that lancer for free. And I'm also going to shoot this lancer coming in here. It's going to hit the square. He did not manage to do a whole lot of damage with that. And my old guard gave a full force volley to his line there on the flank. So Cavalho has been completely annihilated, completely eviscerated by this attack on the flank here. This is well under my control, very well timed and nicely executed by myself there. Cavalho has been completely collapsed on this flank. Now this flank is free to just clean run across and come to flank other positions on the map, but as you see the balance of power, the battle is heavily in our favor. We've taken 3 generals and only lost 1 of our own. This is a very clear 4-9 victory here. It's just a matter of just sweeping this up and bringing it on home for the victory. We've basically already closed out this battle here. Any chance of them rebounding or making a comeback is effectively gone. So it's just going to be a nice little cleanup of the remaining units here. And that being said, that is the conclusion of the game pretty much. We'll sit here and watch the battle from above here. So some notes to talk about in this battle. Let's do an overview of this battle here. So we started off more or less both sides rushing for the middle. Decas was defensive on his side from the forest, and he seeked to maintain that defensive line against me so that he could neutralize my whole army. Meanwhile, he was going to support Cavalho against MDK, which is a very effective strategy they came into this with. However, what I did was I immediately jumped onto the Casso's defensive line. I jumped onto him and forced him to have to draw his attention back over to me. So he pulled some units from supporting Cavalho, and now he had to focus all his attention on me because I was coming at him and hammering on him pretty hard there. And that gave MDK the opportunity to sweep into the gap between himself and Cavalho, and that gap allowed MDK to get into Decasso's rear, and that inflicted a ton of damage on Decasso. He lost a good chunk of his army there and was forced to retreat and pull back before his entire army was collapsed. That essentially gave us all the momentum to continue a all-out general push and advance on that flank, which was greatly needed because on the other side, at the same time that was happening, EE and the Turk guy fought each other almost to a stalemate. I mean, EE was about to get completely annihilated had Sharp not come to assist him, but Sharp came in for the save, and that flank completely canceled each other out. All actions on that flank led to a stalemate, and so it was very good that myself and MDK had already pushed a successful attack while that was going on, so we just kind of continued to press upon that initial advantage we had on my flank. So Decasso and Cavalho fell back on their strong defensive positions near their spawn area. They took positions in the forest. All we did was kind of methodically wrap them up so that we could get multiple angles on the forest, and then we pushed into the forest. As soon as we got halfway into capturing the forest, we launched a general attack which broke the entirety of Continuity's flank over there, and once that flank was broken, it was pretty much GG. It was pretty much a done deal. It was a inevitable 4-9 victory from there, and that was a pretty cool cut textbook victory for 4-9 there. It was pretty easily done. Like, Continuity absolutely lost harder than they should have, for sure. this is what me and DeCasso was talking about initially about uploading these battles, because like we both kind of agreed that, you know, these games, neither of them were close. Continuity beat us easily on Syrian. 4 Ninth beat them easily here on Italian. So, you know, these battles aren't the most representative of our clans. I think I agree with him on that. And I mean, hopefully at some point in the future we can get more games going between our clans that are a bit more interesting than just blowout victories here. But I think this battle in particular, this one battle was pretty good nonetheless. It showcased a lot of good maneuvers. It showcased a lot of good teamwork for the 4 Ninth side. Just like Continuity showed a lot of good teamwork on their battle where they won. And let's see here. We're closing out the battle soon here. Yeah, there we go. Emperor Alderos has lost the remainder of his units. That's GG. Good game to Continuity. 4 Ninth wins this battle. You'll see the results screen here in a second here. Good game to them. As you can see, yeah, it's just like what I said. It's a blowout victory for 4 Ninth here. Same as it was on Syrian, where Continuity pretty much got a blowout victory against us. Very similar results, but this is a slightly more interesting battle, in my opinion. So anyways, with that being said, this has been a clan match between Continuity and 4 Ninth, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.